A new study suggests that the risk of fully vaccinated people getting COVID-19 remains extremely low. Researchers at New York's Rockefeller University observed more than 400 employees who received both shots of either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines. Only 2 of them became infected. Both were mild cases, and both infections were believed to be caused by variant strains. That said, I recently spoke to a woman who has a cautionary tale for anyone wondering if they still need to wear a mask. You're about to meet Tanya Washington. Her dad died of COVID after being doubly vaccinated.
Look at that face you were making towards Papa.
Tanya Washington was so excited when her 80-year-old father got his second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. That meant she and her young daughter could spend Easter with him after being apart for months.
He called me and he said, "Daddy Rabbit's on his way to see you soon." We put the phone on speaker and my daughter was like jumping up and down, and I just felt like, okay, now we are going to be able to, get back to some normalcy.
But 4 weeks after receiving his second dose of the Pfizer vaccine, Tanya's father, a clinical psychologist, started exhibiting strange neurological symptoms, forgetting where he was and having trouble speaking in full sentences. At the emergency room, he was tested for COVID and came back positive.
I was just in absolute shock. This entire thing has been just heartbreaking. This is a PhD, super intelligent, jovial man, and within days, he barely knew who we were.
Kerry Washington, Tanya's dad, died less than 2 weeks after testing positive. He did have underlying health conditions, prediabetes and atrial fibrillation, but according to the death certificate, his cause of death was COVID-19.
This is extraordinarily rare.
Washington is one of an extremely small number of people to get infected with COVID-19 and die 2 weeks or more after being fully vaccinated. According to the most recent CDC data, there have been just 74 confirmed deaths among these breakthrough cases out of more than 84 million Americans now fully vaccinated since December 14th. In that same time period, the U.S. has reported more than 15 million new COVID cases and more than 262,000 deaths. You say that you found that he had a significant amount of virus in his body. Does that mean that the vaccine really did not work on him?
We have found a variant in the sequencing, so that it gave a little bit of a better explanation why this was happening. Most people know it as a California variant and are certainly a threat to the vaccine.
In a statement, a Pfizer spokesman acknowledged rare breakthrough cases and added, "To date, we are encouraged by both the real-world data and laboratory studies of the vaccine and see no evidence that the virus or circulating variants of concern, including the variant originating from California, regularly escape protection." Tanya believes her father caught the virus at his office. When he started feeling ill on March 7th, he went to several doctors, but none tested him for coronavirus until he was hospitalized nearly a week later.
They just assumed that none of his symptoms had to do with COVID because he was fully vaccinated. I just want people to understand that COVID is not over.
Despite increased vaccinations, COVID cases are still high in the U.S.
We're at a precarious situation with many states having increases. Let's get as many people vaccinated as quickly as we possibly can. That is the solution.
This is the case that shows why there's still a risk.
This is not the time to let your guard or your mask down or to hedge whether you want the vaccine. You still have to worry about unvaccinated people. If you feel you don't need it for yourself, get it for your parents or grandparents.
What are you hoping for now?
I want people to learn from my dad's death. You still have to wear a mask. You still have to social distance. And you must look after the elderly and the vulnerable.
And that's exactly it, Victor. This is the case that reminded me of the risk that unvaccinated people do pose to even doubly vaccinated people if you're older and if you're vulnerable. I didn't quite get it until I heard the story of the Washington family.
And that's the concern and the conversation we're having right now. If you're vaccinated, can you start to back off some of these precautions This is the case that says be careful about doing that.
Particularly if you're vulnerable and older.
Yeah.
Our thoughts are with the Washington family, and we'll be